Scott, thanks for joining today. I know you're super busy, and I was really looking forward to connecting with you today. You must be in a very exciting position, being what in essence is a lead AI guy at PwC. Just at a high level, I'm curious, what is that like these days, aside from not getting any rest?
I was gonna say exhausting, just trying to keep up with everything happening. I It's quite fun. I mean, it's quite fun. I love the challenge, and I think what we're seeing today is just it's really unbelievable. I say the invention around AI, and it's just a topic that's been around decades, but just the amount of people focused on it. The money's flowing, which is good, but I think the intellect is flowing a lot more.
Mhm.
People have finally realized we've kind of cracked something here since the transformer, and that has just triggered this wave of invention. So it's exhausting to keep up, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that.
Oh,
Keep
sure. I sense that I'm the same way. And just based on our membership network, um, we're doing our best to keep up. And we, like you, do this every day. And it's just, it's amazing. There are so many things we could talk about, Scott. I thought just based on this being the year of the agent, as the AI agent, as many are referring to it as, I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. And there's plenty that's been said, but I'd love your perspective. And if we could start with just the concept or the theory of it. I'm not sure what you're seeing, but within my network, as always, there's the believers and the non-believers. There's the enthusiasts and the cynics. Where are you on agentic AI and the impact it will have?
I'm normally, a enthusiast. I'm always looking for the next thing, and I love the concept of agents. I do think there's quite a buzz around it, but it's one of those terms that I think means something different to everyone, and that's where I think people are on different sides of the fence. So I think there's this group of people that think it's just kind of the next version of RPA. So the process automation, and we all know that that had this promise. We never really probably saw what we thought we would see. And if you think Amara's law, we overestimate short term, underestimate long term. I think we're at this pivot point in agents, or with AI in general, but these agents, and to demystify, there is some basic automation. They're going to provide some basic automation, but the difference now is I think it's building a much less brittle architecture. Where in my mind, RPA was really tied to a UI and an app, and it was the human process just going maybe faster. I think AI agents do have the promise to skip a bunch of steps to create a much more flexible interaction, a thinking, reasoning, and planning, capability that's almost automated by itself. But I think
Right.
there's a lot to do, and I think some of the challenge now is there's a lot of different agent frameworks. So depending on the cloud you're running in, depending on what open source framework you're going to use, they all have different capabilities. So we're stepping back to look at is there an underlying kind of glue that we need for things like memory across frameworks, and how do we make sure these agents are learning and getting better based on human interaction, which I still think is important. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's a variety of definitions of agent. To me, it comes down to um, being able to automate with thinking, reasoning, and planning, within that, not just a hard, brittle, old school thinking of make the process faster. I think it's make the
Mhm.
process better. I think the challenge ahead is keeping humans in that loop. How do we continually improve and optimize agents? And I think a lot of the focus should be there and making sure that we're being responsible. So yeah,
Oh,
it's an exciting
that
time.
makes sense. No, it is. It is. Everyone seems to be talking about it. So when I launched ERPA AI maybe 13 years ago now, back then I was kind of obsessed with this concept of digital labor. So I come from the Outsourcing Institute, right? So for 20 plus years was labor arbitrage.
Right.
How I and I stumbled when I stumbled across RPA. To me, I was intrigued by that. And as you say, it wasn't the be all and end all, but I thought that might be a step in a direction that
Right.
could be an alternative for so many in the outsourcing space and the labor arbitrage space that was looking for something more and different because the economics were just becoming less attractive. Um, and then lo and behold, it starts evolving to intelligent automation. So that gets my attention. And I'm thinking, you know what, maybe we're just about there with digital labor, maybe not. And my definition of digital labor is a software that can emulate a knowledge worker. So it has to be
Mhm.
intelligent enough and adaptive enough, right? A shift from supporting a knowledge worker to actually emulating, either as a replacement or digital staff augmentation, if you will, right? So
Sure.
whether it's call center, mortgage processing, whatever it may be. Um, so here we are now with this concept of an autonomous AI agent, right? And something that you could set off and have it go do work, right? It's not like if you step away from a spreadsheet, it just sits there.
Yeah.
So I am very much intrigued by it for maybe different reasons than others are, because I start to see now that we may finally have an alternative way to get work done. And in line with that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is um, I'm thinking way too many people are looking at this purely as a technology play.
Yeah.
And I see it as an opportunity to look at it either from a process play or a work deployment play, or just an overall just maybe reinvention of how to get work done in a particular department or an organization. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think the first wave of agents I saw were really just maybe single task or a couple tasks that were automated, and that's not the real benefit. I think you're right. It's reinventing. I tell my team, if there's 10 steps in the process, don't worry about any of them. Look at the inputs and the outputs and see what we can do in the middle to optimize to get those great outputs. And I don't care if it's 10 steps anymore. Hopefully it's not. And I think AI agents, the ability for them to, again, it's that non-brittle interface. There's reasoning that's going to happen. And I look at it as breaking down the barriers of getting to legacy data and technology, right? The challenge we have of moving things. Can an agent now interface with legacy technology, but bring it into the new world of the cloud? I probably a year plus ago, I said I see the end of APIs for programmers, because I think an agent should be looking at those APIs and tools and using them responsibly and in the best way. And those agents may have a better way than our static programming that we have today. So I think that reinvention is the real value. And I think we're starting to see that pivot. People had to get used to it, understand what agents could and couldn't do. But really, it was just single tasks. And to me, that's like a workflow. That's something that was just kind of pure automation before. Now we're starting to see these multi-agent systems that work together, and agents talking to agents and trying to make a decision. And maybe a couple agents providing an answer and another agent consolidating that answer to be better. That's where I see the power, and that will reinvent process and take a lot of the old world of step by step out, and enable humans to do more. And again, humans in the loop along the way, reinforcing what those agents are doing. We have to, again, be responsible and put some of those guardrails in, but humans should be part of that. So yeah, I'm with you on the reinvention and really stepping back, blank sheet almost on some of these processes that maybe have been around 100 years. Let's rethink.
Right.
Let's rethink them and see where AI can really accelerate the value.
No, makes sense. Good. So curious what you think about if you think about where people are now as they're like senior executives looking at AI and what's could be done. I was asked this question recently, and I struggled a bit to answer it. See what you think, and then I could leverage your
So
answer.
the
Would
hard
that?
questions. All right, here we go.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll promise to quote you. So here's the question: if you think about the majority of companies out there, let's just say Global 2000 for a moment, the majority of them have barely made moves into generative AI, large language models. Most of them are fairly vested um, in RPA, and may have a perspective, either happy or not so happy or somewhere in between. But if they haven't really made a move yet, a real move into generative AI, and here is now agentic AI, what are you advising your clients? Should they skip and plug in right now, or should they, are you suggesting maybe a path to take? Well, I guess what do you recommend as a first and second step? Let's say just for the automation community, which you and I both know fairly well.
Yeah, it's a tough one, depending on where the company's at. So, I always start with educate and experiment. You have to understand the capabilities. What does AI actually do well and what doesn't it do well? So thinking about where I have deterministic or non-deterministic options is really important. AI doesn't solve everything. I think what I'm seeing is at the executive level, they see the value of agents, but in their mind, I think a lot of times that's a chatbot. And to me, that is not an agent, right? That's one maybe permutation of how an end user would engage agents. But at the executive level, they're starting to turn the corner to say we can rethink an entire process. How do we, increase our revenue or products to market and take a little bit of cost out? And that combination is super powerful. Then I think at the lowest levels, the engineers, they see the cool technology. It's kind of that middle layer that's hesitating because it is fundamentally changing what they do every day. And that's a
Right.
human problem. So I always say this human problem is much bigger. I know we can solve the technical problem. I know we can scale agents. We can codify and put reasoning and thinking into these things. They're going to be great. But that middle layer of leadership, I think, is a little bit worried around the world is changing drastically. So the human problem, I think, is right in front of us. But we also have to really reinvent process. The task automation will get us some of the same returns we saw with RPA, single digit, maybe low double digit efficiencies, but that's not the big bet that I think we're after. I think we're looking sector by sector. What are the biggest areas of investment, and how do we really increase the margin or market penetration or revenue opportunities by rethinking the process end to end? And that's hard. That's a hard thing for big enterprises to do. I think the smaller, more nimble companies are after it because they can change a lot faster. But
Right.
big organizations, that middle layer, it's tough. It's a big cultural change. So that education experimentation starts that process, but it is a long journey to kind of transform the thinking of everyone in an organization.
No, absolutely. It's what I call mindset over tool set, right? Like you say,
Yeah,
the tech
yeah,
is there, but can you get people to be willing to revisit, and maybe just re-engineer the process? Things have been done the same way so many times. If you go to the average bank and see how many steps are in mortgage processing,
right,
you know, uh, uh, if you look at just the typical call center, how many people are still just waiting on holding it passed around and ask the same question so many times? We all experience this as consumers.
right.
And Scott, guys like you and I, we know the fix. We know it can be fixed today.
Fundamental change. Yeah,
It's no longer rocket science, but somebody somewhere has to make that decision to say, let's revisit this. So, along those lines, what are your thoughts on what a company should do as far as build versus buy, right? On one hand, you could say this is a great opportunity for the enterprise. On the other hand, you could say for let's say the BPO community, business process outsourcing or business process services, um, this is an ideal time to just rather than have all sorts of science experiments just with the stroke of a pen, sign up for some SLAs and KPIs and have folks do that for a living. Any thoughts on what that balance would be, especially knowing that the technology, the number one player is probably going to evolve every year from this point forward.
or every month, depending.
Maybe.
I'm a big fan of buy. I think we're still early to go out and look at buying full-on agents, right? I think we'll see agents as a service here, but I think we're still a little ahead of that. There's a ton of open source, to be honest. So I always look at, what can I get from my hyperscalers out of the box? And a lot of that now is open source that they're providing from an agent perspective. So I think there's a lot of value there. Then I look at, where are the gaps in that, especially if I'm multi-cloud or I'm multi-function. And then I look at, are there bespoke tools that serve a specific function? If we're thinking about customer and call center, is there a bespoke language tool that, I want to go buy? I don't want to build that. So it's really a decision tree we go through every day. And I think it's evolving, like you said, very fast. But there's been an amazing amount of open source community happening around agents. The hyperscalers are obviously investing because they see that as, long-term agents as a service will drive consumption on the cloud. And there are great vendors out there, but a lot of the times the vendors they're still not at the level that it's just a plug and play, right? Because your business is going to need some specificity and some nuance. I think we'll get there, but I think it's still early for those kind of silver bullet options like we had in RPA. It would work on anything. We're still a little bit ways out from that for agents, but I think we'll get there.
Okay, no, I agree as well. Just with the limited time we have, Scott, one more question. What is your advice for the CXOs out there that are still maybe wondering, what step they should take in general as they're getting deluged with all
Yeah.
this information, white papers, webinars. Um, you're on the cutting edge of this, and you see who's moving and who's not moving. You see what's working and not working. What is your advice to those that are maybe they were reluctant last year, but as we get into this year, they're ready to maybe take a baby step or two? What should they do?
I would say waiting is not a good strategy in the world of AI right now. So I think before you could wait on the cloud, see what your competitors are doing. You could wait on an ERP and see, if the business case was there. I think AI is moving too fast to kind of wait. So I always say put your toe in somewhere. Find an area of your business that is comfortable to start to test in, and that's where that educate and experiment happens. You'll get to enablement later, but find that area that you have some revenue opportunities, you have a market opportunity, you can outpace your competitor, and start to insert AI into that process. Of course, you can call me and I'll help you, but I think the reality is peeling down layers, but beyond the headlines of agentic architecture. What does that really mean? It's about that reinvention of your business. It's about building that reasoning and thinking and planning into these tools with your human experts paired up with them, and then kind of going across your business and finding opportunities. But I think waiting is a bad strategy right now. You don't have to keep up because it is crazy and exhausting, but I think you have to have some quarterly or maybe monthly, but maybe quarterly refresh of what's happening just with the pace of change we're seeing.
Great. Scott, thank you so much. Very insightful,
Yeah, thanks for
as I
having
knew
me.
this
Good to
discussion
see
would
you.
be. And I'm gonna come and get you again for one more. We ran out of time today, but I
Happy
look
to.
forward to the next discussion. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.